The dust never settled in Sector 9. Every gust of wind carried with it the ash of broken cities and the memories of forgotten names. In the shadows of collapsed towers and scorched earth, the girl lived small, silent, and watching. She had no name, at least not one she remembered. Those who raised her, briefly, in the shattered husks of resistance bunkers, called her Ghost. Not because she was invisible, but because she never cried. Not when the airstrikes came, not when the food ran out, not even when the last adult fell beside her with a hole in his chest and a warning half-whisper on his lips. She was 10, or close enough, in the ruins of Earth. Years weren't measured by birthdays, but by winter survived. She had learned early how to move without being seen, how to steal only what couldn't be traced, how to sleep light and run lighter. Other children clustered in packs, trying to recreate something like family. Not her. She hunted alone, trusted no one, and spoke only when she had to. There was no cruelty in her solitude, only calculation. Kindness had cost her once. She hadn't forgotten. It was during one of her silent scavenging runs, ducking under broken pipelines in a city whose name had long been erased, that she saw the sky tear open. A rift, black and humming, split the clouds like a wound. She didn't flinch. Curiosity slowed her, just for a moment, long enough. They weren't soldiers. They weren't human. The ones who stepped through the rift wore silver exosuits that shimmered like mercury and moved like smoke. She bolted, of course. Even at 10, her reflexes were sharper than most adults. She scaled a wall, ducked through a storm drain, but they were faster, and they didn't breathe. When she woke, it wasn't the smell of sulfur and rot, but antiseptic steel. A blue light pulsed above her. Cold cuffs bound her wrists. The cell was clean, rounded, and alien. The air tasted filtered. Somewhere nearby, someone was crying. A child, a whimpering, scared sound. She sat up and listened, noting each intake of breath, each shuffle of movement. There were others, dozens of them, at least, boys and girls from other ruins, other wastelands. Some had marks burned into their skin. Most didn't speak. One girl tried to scream and was silenced by a bolt of electricity from the ceiling. No one screamed after that. The days, or what passed for days in the ship, bled together. They were tested, scanned, prodded, weighted, and measured. She said nothing, gave nothing. Even when they put her in the white room with the lights too bright and the voice that whispered promises in her ear, she didn't blink. The voice called her Subject 17. She ignored it. The others noticed her. A boy with a shock of white blonde hair tried to speak to her once. She stared at him until he stopped. Still, she watched him, how he had food in his sleeves, how he flinched when guards passed. Weakness. Eventually, they brought them all to Hangar, a wide space that pulsed with energy, where windows showed stars too close and suns too distant. That's when they saw it. The planet. Not a world, exactly, but a machine carved into a sphere. Its surface was metal and smoke, spiked towers and endless walls. It glowed from within. The arena. They didn't explain it, but she didn't need explanations. The way the older children cried, the way the guards looked at them like merchandise, the way the ground shuddered as the ship descended, she understood. This was not rescue. This was sport. They were sorted, not by age, not by size, by something else, something the scanners read in their blood. Her group had 8, all small, all silent. The failed ones never returned. When her turn came, she walked, calm, deliberate. Her handler, a slouched thing with eyeless sockets, muttered something in a language she didn't know. She met its gaze, if it had one, and didn't look away. That seemed to bother it. The chamber they brought her to was circular, with mirrored walls and a floor that hummed. No weapons, no instruction, just light. Then the floor cracked open. She didn't scream as she dropped. She didn't even brace. She landed on sand, coarse, hot. Around her, 8 others blinked in confusion. The ceiling above retracted. A roar echoed down. A crowd, tens of thousands strong. A trial. She understood now. Metal doors opened on the other side of the chamber. Shapes emerged, four-legged beasts, their bodies all angles and armor, mouths like saws. The children scattered. Some ran. One boy curled into a ball and sobbed. The beast didn't hesitate. She moved. Not fast, but right. She darted toward one of the beasts just as it lunged, sliding beneath its legs and grabbing a splinter of bone from the remains of a less fortunate child. As the creature turned, confused by her audacity, she jammed the shard into the joint of its front leg. It shrieked, an unholy metallic sound. Another came for her. She led it toward the curled boy. The beast pounced. She did not look away. By the time it ended, only 3 children stood. One was bleeding from a dozen cuts. One was shaking uncontrollably. And her, quiet, bloodstained calm. The crowd screamed her name, or a name they gave her. Smilah. Not her real name, but it would do. They took her back, cleaned her, fed her, watched her. She noticed a change in their posture when they approached. Not caution, not respect, fear. That night, in the cell with the filtered air and artificial calm, she stared at her reflection in the polished wall. A small girl, eyes too big, expression unreadable. She smiled. Not joy, not madness, just understanding. This place wanted a show. She would give them one. They began calling her the anomaly behind closed doors, thinking she couldn't hear them. The humans spoke freely around her, forgetting she was still a child. The aliens didn't care. She was meat to them, valuable, fascinating meat, but meat nonetheless. Every day began before the lights rose. A sharp burst of sound jolted the dormitories awake, and handlers filed in with shock staves and nutrient paste. Most of the children had learned to comply. She never needed reminding. She was already on her feet, teeth brushed, suit fastened, watching. Training was segmented. Physical endurance, weapons, tactical awareness, psychological resistance. The instructors were varied, some mechanical, some organic, all cruel. They taught through exhaustion and subtraction. Mistakes cost rations, rest, or protection. No one received praise. In the obstacle trials, she was the smallest. She used it, crawled where others had to climb, slid through gaps, let heavier trainees knock each other off balance while she moved quietly, efficiently. Her timing became flawless, her strength deceptive. She never competed openly. She outlasted. Her classmates didn't know what to make of her. Some tried to befriend her out of desperation. Others grew resentful. One tall boy, 3 years older, made a show of tripping her in the corridor. She didn't fall. She didn't react. That night, the boy's bed was empty. He returned the next day with a limp and a dead stare. No one tried after that. She paid attention to the guards when they rotated, which ones had slow reflexes, which ones stared too long. She memorized the compound's layout. Not to escape. Not yet. She needed more. Then came the first arena match. The chamber was enormous. Open sky above, cold sand below, a mechanical sun burning down on them with artificial precision. She stood alongside 2 others, a girl with razor implants in her arms and a boy with skin like stone. Their handlers said nothing. The gate opened. 3 opponents stepped forward. Hybrids, part beast, part machine, their movements glitching like bad code. Their jaws opened sideways, too wide, too fast. The girl's teammates charged. She didn't. The stone-skinned boy landed the first blow, shattering one of the creature's limbs, but he was too slow. Another opponent rammed into his side, drove metal claws through his ribs. He collapsed, coughing green. The razor girl screamed and dove forward, slashing wildly. She scored hits, deep ones, but lacked control. A hybrid caught her by the throat and flung her into the wall. She moved then, not in panic, not in haste. She sprinted to the side, retrieved the shard of the fallen creature's armor, and circled. 1-on-1 now. She feinted left. The hybrid followed. She spun, stepped onto its lower limbs, and stabbed it through the neck joint. A soft pop, a hiss, then silence. The crowd roared. She was 11 that night. She sat alone in her chamber while the others celebrated surviving. The instructors reviewed the footage over and over. Analysts argued. Was it luck? Training? Mutation? It was neither. It was pattern recognition. They began sending her into matches more frequently, always with a different team, always with someone who could, on paper, easily win. Yet each time, it was her standing at the end, not unscathed, but unbroken. She was faster now, meaner. She learned how to dislocate an elbow with a boot, how to twist a knife inside synthetic muscle, how to use another fighter's momentum as a weapon. Her reputation grew. By the third month, she noticed the stairs in the hallway. The other trainees stepped aside when she passed. Even the handlers seemed more cautious. And yet, she never raised her voice, never bragged, never laughed. They began broadcasting her fights system-wide. The views climbed. Commentators debated her humanity. Was she a clone? A lab-grown killing machine? Just a very lucky freak? They named her Smiler, a twist on smile, a nod to her eerie calm, her habit of offering a small, crooked grin just before the final blow. In one match, they pitted her against a creature 3 times her size, a bipedal warhound bred for the sands of Helix Prime. Its muscles twitched under scaled hide, its maw dripping with venom. She didn't dodge when it charged. She stepped forward. At the last second, she dropped to her knees, slid under its belly, and sliced its tendons with a shard she had buried in the sand earlier. The crowd stood. After that, she became a legend. They started testing her mind next. The psychological rooms. She was shown visions, her younger self, starving in a ruined bunker. Her mother's face, which she couldn't remember. The boy she let die in the trial pit. The simulations were cruel, perfectly tailored. She watched them all. Unblinking, the test facilitators failed her once. Just once. The system had a flaw, and she noticed it. During a vision loop, the monitor flickered and revealed a different room. Another child, crying, being prepped for dismemberment. She committed every detail to memory. The scent, the time, the technician's face. Later that week, that technician vanished. By the 6th month, they stopped pairing her with other fighters. No one would volunteer. They brought in constructs, beasts, mechs. None lasted long. One match changed everything. They assigned her to a 4-person team against another group of champions. Among her team was a boy she had seen before, the white-haired one from the ship. He had grown, hardened. He recognized her and smiled. Not like she did. His was cruel. The match began as expected. Chaos, violence, smoke. The arena filled with traps, sudden spikes, bursts of fire, collapsing platforms. 2 from the other team fell quickly. Her white-haired teammate stuck close to her, almost too close. Then he turned, a blade hidden in his forearm. He swung without warning. She ducked, lashed out with her elbow, but he anticipated it. He was good, better than the others. He had been trained with her in mind. He whispered, "They told me you were a lie. Let's find out." They fought, not theatrically, not like the others. It was silent, surgical. Blows aimed to kill, counters meant to maim. At one point, he had her pinned, a knife to her throat. She laughed, just once, and headbutted him so hard he bit through his tongue. She left him breathing, barely, then turned and finished the match. Backstage, the arena master himself came to see her, a towering figure more machine than man. His eyes glowed red. His voice was like rusted gears. "You're becoming a problem," he said. She tilted her head, smiled. He didn't speak again. They put her in isolation after that. No training, no sunlight, just a cell and silence. They watched, waited for her to break. She meditated, counted the seconds, strengthened her hands against the wall. Thought. The next time they let her out, they noticed something had changed. Not her eyes, not her posture. Her silence had grown heavier. And now they were afraid. The guards no longer made eye contact when they escorted her. Their hands hovered closer to their weapons, and their steps lacked the confidence they once carried. Smiler walked between them without resistance, her posture relaxed, her gaze unfocused. She let them believe she was complacent. Let them believe she'd accepted her place in the system they built. The arena had grown louder, wider. Her matches were no longer simple contests of strength or speed. Now they were events, elaborate productions meant to appease the masses across galaxies. Each battle came with spectacle, descending platforms, holographic illusions, volatile terrain. Once, they flooded the arena floor with knee-deep liquid metal that responded to emotional surges. She had waded through it with a steady pulse while her opponent drowned in his own panic. They were studying her. Yes, but she was studying them too. The announcers loved her. The girl who smiles. The last human. The weapon in child skin. She heard the voices over loudspeakers, felt their excitement like static against her skin. But none of them knew the truth. She had started to remember, not everything, not names or lullabies, but flashes, the weight of her mother's hand, the warmth of firelight, the taste of bread made with real grain. More than that, she remembered why she'd stopped talking. Her older brother, that final night, his whisper, "Don't scream. Whatever happens, don't let them hear you." She hadn't made a sound since. The arena masters were restless. She sensed in the way her schedule shifted. Fewer matches, more observation. Her food was monitored more closely. The handlers began taking samples of her blood daily, muttering to one another in urgent tones. Something was changing. She knew it before they did. Her body was faster now, more responsive. Wounds closed overnight. Her eyes adjusted in the dark faster than the cameras could track. And she dreamed vivid, lucid dreams of places she'd never seen but felt familiar. They weren't just training her anymore. They were trying to understand her. She wasn't like the others. She was evolving. The conflict surfaced in whispers. A security lapse here. A guard retired after making a mistake. An instructor found unconscious with no memory of the night before. They tried to cover it. They underestimated her ability to listen, to piece together patterns from fragments. There was a faction within the arena, a small one, but growing. Not everyone supported the continued exploitation of the human anomaly. Some believed she was a key to ending the games altogether. Others saw her as a threat to containment, a force no longer under control. The fractures deepened after what came to be known as the mirror match. It wasn't her idea. The arena masters wanted to test her against herself. They had taken data from her battles, her movements, decisions, reflexes, and built a synthetic copy. Not perfect, but close enough. When the gates opened, she saw the duplicate step forward. Same height, same frame, same cold stare. But the eyes were wrong. Flat, hollow. They expected her to hesitate. She didn't. The fight lasted 17 seconds. The audience didn't cheer. It was too fast, too brutal. She dismantled the copy with surgical precision, each blow designed not for spectacle, but for certainty. She made sure the cameras caught the moment her heel crushed its synthetic skull. The message was clear. No replica could contain her. After that, the arena changed. Not just structurally, but atmospherically. It felt tighter. Tense. Guards walked in pairs. Surveillance drones multiplied. Protocols were reinforced. They knew they had crossed a line. Smiler began mapping every hallway she was escorted through. She started timing the distance between shift changes, noting every blinking light, every irregular hum in the ventilation. She memorized guard routines, bathroom breaks, and emergency procedures. She wasn't planning escape. Not yet. She was planning collapse. But before that, she needed to understand the core, the beating heart of the system that turned her life into entertainment. She got her chance during what should have been a routine recalibration. They took her to a diagnostics chamber, usually staffed by drones, harmless, mechanical. But this time, a human technician was present, older, gaunt, with a scar trailing from his temple to his jaw. He didn't speak when she entered, just gestured for her to sit. She obeyed, let him scan her, waited. Then he spoke, barely audible. "You're not the only one." Her body remained still, but her heart kicked once against her ribs. She didn't respond. "They kept the others off record," he continued, voice tight with urgency. "They didn't survive. You're different. You weren't just born into war. You were designed to finish it. She met his eyes. This close, she saw the tremble in his fingers. He wasn't lying. How many? She asked. His lips barely moved. 14 attempts. You're number 15. First to pass stage 3. They don't know why you're stable. What happens now? He hesitated. Then they plan to dissect you before the change is complete. The silence that followed was thick. Electric. She rose from the chair. I won't let them. The technician nodded once, slid something into her hand. Small. Cool. A key. Alarms didn't sound. No security burst in. The procedure finished as scheduled. But everything had changed. She knew now what she was, and what they feared she could become. That night, in her cell, she used the key, not to escape, to access the terminal embedded in the wall, a relic from earlier designs. The system was old, fragmented, but it still held data. She worked silently, fingers moving faster than even she expected. Training hadn't covered this. Instinct had. She found the files. Project Ascendant, Human Enhancement Initiative, terminated, redacted, and her. Subject 15, cross-reference with genetic profiles marked primordial lineage. Whatever that meant, it wasn't something they wanted anyone to know. She kept digging. The arena wasn't just entertainment. It was a trial ground, a filtration system for identifying anomalies biologically and psychologically. Winners weren't rewarded. They were harvested. Her name was on the list of those marked for repurposing. It was on a different list. Classified, uncontainable. A decision had been made. Her final match was scheduled. 1-on-1. No opponent listed. She understood the implication. They were going to kill her, so she prepared. Not with rage, with precision. The final arena was unlike any she'd seen. There were no jagged platforms or fire pits, no swarming beasts or synthetic adversaries. Just silence. A vast, circular chamber of obsidian black glass, reflecting her image back in infinite, warped variations. Overhead, the artificial sky churned violet and gray, lightning twitching like veins across the dome. Smiler stepped forward alone. There was no audience this time. No roar of bloodthirsty masses. The feeds had been cut, she knew. This match wasn't meant to be watched. It was meant to erase her. She could feel in the air, too sterile, too still. The very atmosphere held its breath. They were done playing games. She had become a variable too dangerous to contain, too unpredictable to study. Her survival had become a flaw in their system, and now the system was closing in on itself to seal the breach. She took slow, measured steps to the center of the chamber. Her bare feet barely made a sound. The weapon they had given her was crude, a dull-edged glaive too large for her frame. Deliberate, she thought. They wanted her to fail, or suffer, or both. She dropped it. Her hands were better tools. Then the far gate opened. He stepped through. She recognized him instantly. The white-haired boy, older now, sharper, the one who tried to kill her before. But this wasn't just a rematch. He was different, augmented. His body shimmered faintly, veins lifted within with bioluminescent power. His spine arched unnaturally, supported by an exoskeletal brace that pulsed in sync with his breath. They had turned him into something else. Not just a fighter. A weapon. His eyes met hers, calm, almost sympathetic. They told me this would be the end, he said. For both of us. She said nothing, just tilted her head, a question without words. He glanced at the ceiling, the invisible eyes watching from above. They're afraid of what we are, of what we could become. Her voice came like a whisper, dust soft but unbreakable. Then why fight me? He looked down. When he spoke again, there was a tremor in it. Because if I don't, they'll kill the others. The ones they're hiding. Children, like we were. For a moment, the chamber felt colder. She had suspected there were more. But to hear confirmed that they were real, still alive, still suffering, struck something deep in her. She saw the choice laid out like a blade. Surrender to death and let them vanish, or survive and burn it all down. He lowered his stance. She nodded. They moved. It wasn't like the others, brutish, chaotic brawls soaked in blood. This was poetry written in motion. Every strike met with a counter, every feint with a dodge. They were mirrors, not just in form but in thought. Predictive, adaptive. They clashed and broke apart in perfect rhythm, carving arcs into the floor with their footsteps. He was fast. She was faster. He hit harder. She hit smarter. He hesitated. She didn't. He tried to end it quickly, a lunge aimed at her ribs. She twisted, caught his wrist, and used his momentum to slam him to the ground. But she didn't strike the killing blow. Instead, she stepped back, breathing hard, eyes locked on his. "You don't want this," she said. He coughed, blood flecking his lip. "Doesn't matter. They'll kill them. You. Everyone. Unless we stop them," she replied. He stared up at her for a long time, then nodded once. The ceiling groaned. Panels shifted. A hiss echoed from the walls. They'd been watching long enough, and they understood. She wasn't going to die. They had failed. The room darkened. Above them, the sky cracked open, and a shape descended. Massive, monolithic, the Overseer. It hovered on silent grav thrusters, its faceless dome glinting with surveillance lenses and weapon ports. A voice filled the arena, cold and automated. Experiment breach protocol. Termination authorized. Smiler looked to the boy, his jaw clenched. They were no longer opponents. Now, they were two halves of the same defiance. They ran. The Overseer's weapon spun to life. Laser lines painted the floor in red and gold. But they were already moving, zigzagging, using the arena's curve for cover. Smiler dug beneath a strafing bolt, her fingers grazing the discarded glaive, snatching it without slowing. The boy scaled the curved wall with inhuman grace, launching himself toward the machine with reckless speed. Smiler leapt. The glaive buried itself in the thruster. Sparks erupted. The Overseer reeled. He landed on its hull, pried open a maintenance port, and jammed his arm into it. Pain arched through his face, but he didn't scream. He pulled something free, a glowing core the size of a heart. The Overseer crashed. Silence rang like a bell. The chamber door hissed open, not by command, but by failure. Outside, the complex awaited. Hundreds of levels, thousands of cells. More like her. More experiments. She turned to the boy, who still clutched the sparking core, breath shallow. "What now?" he asked. She looked past him to the door. "We finished what they started." And she smiled.